I said, I want the knife, please. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, some of you guys might not know it, man, but there's a movie I watched when I was growing up. It was called The Golden Child. It had Eddie Murphy in it. And they're supposed to be asking for this knife. And so he's like, there's like this little rotator thing, and he's like rapping. He's like, Yeah, it's funny, man. If you haven't seen it, man, watch it. It's a classic movie. You know, Eddie Murphy's pretty funny. Anyways, man, as you guys know, we do have the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz going on right now. And so I have the round 11 game, the rematch between Wesley So and Quang Liêm, there's a lot of former Webster University players here. There's Wesley So, there's Quang Liêm, and there's Ray Robson. You know, they were all super cool in college. But this ain't college, homie. This is the real world. Dog eat dog. Anyways, man. All of my people in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay. Magandang umaga. It is still pretty early over there. So I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Masaya Kong Kitty Kang Muli. Appreciate you guys very much. Anybody coming from Vietnam, I will say Jao Mui Nui and Cam on Ban. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we got for this game, homie. We got the move knight to f3, so we start off with the ready opening. But as you guys probably know, this does transpose almost every single time into a different opening. We do see d5, we got d4, so we have more of a queen's pawn type of opening, zook retort. We do see knight to f6, we got bishop to f4, c5. We got e3, knight to c6, and then we do see knight b to d2. And we have arrived in the London system. Eric Rosen is smiling somewhere in the world after seeing this game, probably. We do see the move e6. We got c3. Just creating a nice, you see this V right here, you know, creating a nice little structure. We have a nice little center, both sides kind of similar, you know, doing the same thing. We do see pawn taking d4, pawn taking d4, and this does kind of allow a little bit of an escape for our bishop. Of course, we developed the bishop outside the pawn chain just so that we don't kind of close it in on a French type tip. We do see knight to h5. Very logical. I mean, this bishop at the moment is kind of just hanging out in space for no reason. So we do bring it back to e3. We got bishop to d6. That is definitely one of the other reasons why you would like that bishop to be removed, because this is a really, really nice square for your own bishop to be. And at the moment, the knight is a little bit off sides, so Wesley So takes advantage of that by playing knight to e5. And you guys see in the thumbnail, this knight is like, hey, bro, what am I doing over here, man? I'm scared. So do not lose a piece. So we do see Liêm go back to knight to f6. We got the move f4. Now that knight is pretty much there to live forever. We got queen to b6, attacking the pawn on b2. And the queen just blocks all of that. They're like, man, you're not getting none of my pawns, homie. So we do see knight going back to g8. And this is kind of obvious what we're wanting to do. You know, we're not trying to redirect this knight. We're saying, hey, bro, I don't like your knight where it is. Get rid of it. So we're looking at f6 coming up at some point. We do see g3, and this is the novelty of the game. It's a pretty logical idea. I mean, you kind of want to put this bishop usually on g2, so you can just add some pressure to this d5 pawn. In some cases, it might come out to h3. We got to see. We do see f6, the move that I was telling you guys a second ago. That knight is too good in the center of the board, so we got to knock it away. So knight goes to d3. We see knight to h6. We have bishop to g2. We got castles by black, castles by white, and then the knight does come to g4. And I mean, depending on how the position is, this can be a little bit of an inconvenience because, I mean, we do kind of want to have this bishop in our lives. We don't want the knight to just attack it. It's a little bit different in this position here, and I will show you guys that coming up. Rook f comes to e1. We see knight back to e7. Bishop goes to h3, and then we have knight going back to h6. It might kind of seem like I did all of this to put the knight there so that I can attack this bishop. Like, why don't I just take the bishop? You can. It's not the absolute best. If you do take here, you would be looking at rook taking e3. And you kind of have two issues in this position if you're black. Number one, you have a lot of pressure on this pawn, especially if this rook swings over. You really kind of have threats against your structure that, you know, you really can't parry if you are black. And also, you could possibly lose a pawn if you do decide that you want to push the pawn, because bishop would take, and then you'd be looking at rook taking, and there's just too much protection on this e5 square if you are white. So That is why we see after bishop to h3, we do see the knight retreating back to h6. We got bishop back to f2. You know, really glad that we were able to save our bishop. And then we do see knight redirecting to f5. This is a really nice maneuver because, you know, your knight is not doing anything on the h6 square. We do see rook to e2. We got h5, and then we do see rook a to e1. You see that you kind of still have that idea. It's still a little bit present in the position to just add a lot of pressure onto this backward pawn because obviously it cannot move forward. We got queen taking b3, and this is a somewhat critical position. You do think about if you're going to take with the knight or the pawn, so Wesley So decides to take with the pawn, which is fully legitimate. You definitely can do that, and it is dead even. We do see the move b6, and then we do see the move c4, and you are dreaming of black taking your pawn here so you can take back with your a pawn or your b pawn, and you have just completely fixed your structure. But black is not going to do that. That is more like a lower level intermediate type stuff where you just kind of capture because it's there. These players do not fall for that stuff. We do see king to f7 because we're like, hey man, let's protect our pawn right here. I'm not helping you fix your structure, homie. We do see bishop back to g2, and this is a very useful square for it to go to because it is kind of eyeing that rook that is undefended on a8. We got rook to b8, just taking care of that immediately. We got the move h3. We see rook sliding over to d8. Bishop goes up to f3, and we have actually reached a position in the game. Black has a very, very nice positional move that they can make, and it is taking advantage of a slight weakness in white's position. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to guess that move, go ahead and do so. Okay, so one of the things about it is your central pawns are definitely your strongest pawns that you want to kind of hold on to. At the moment, Wesley So kind of has a slight weakness in his position as far as his central pawn is concerned because he only legitimately has the d pawn left. So the way that you can take advantage of that if you are Quang Liêm is to go knight to c6, and you guys can see that the coordination of the knights against your position as white, you really don't have a good way to really defend this pawn. It's kind of dropping, and so the main idea that white kind of has to do if they're going to try to counterattack you is do something like pawn takes d5. The problem is you are trying to see if you can kind of capture here with check, and it's going to be somewhat okay. But the major problem is that you have just isolated these doubled pawns, and you really have no way to kind of free those up. So that pawn takes b3 kind of comes back to bite you just a little bit. Instead of that, if you did say, hey man, I got this check over here on h5, because it definitely is something, you would be looking at the move g6, and the computer still wants you to go pawn takes d5, just isolating your pawns and counterattacking. And but most people, I think, are going to say, hey man, I'm going to go back to f3 with my bishop. I'm going to save my bishop. And then you would be looking at knight f takes d4, bishop takes g4, d4, knight takes d4. And then you are able to get your knight out of the way, but you are giving up basically both of your bishops. To play super accurately, black would just say, man, I don't even want your bishop. I'm going to go back to e7. I'm going to go ahead and protect this pawn. I'm still not taking on c4 at all. So that is not kind of where you want to be. And that is something that Quang Liêm did miss because he did go h4, which is definitely very logical as well. You're just trying to break down the structure in front of white's king. But we do see the move g4. Knight goes down to g3. We do see bishop taking g3, pawn taking g3. And this is kind of the point where things start to kind of roll for Wesley So. We do see the move f5, very accurate move defined. Pawn takes f5, and then we have a very, very cute dynamic move because, these pawns were kind of just a little bit of annoying at the beginning. So now we are kind of doing a little something, something, and you guys will see what is coming up. Pawn takes c5, pawn takes c5, and you actually have a little bit of a problem with this knight because this pawn is trying to knock this bishop back here. So your really only move is to go bishop to e5 and allow white to capture a pawn. We do see knight taking e5, pawn taking e5, rook taking e5, knight goes to g6, counterattacking this rook in the center. Rook goes to d5. We see rook taking d5, bishop taking d5 with check. The king goes down to f6, and then we do see the move rook to e8. And you see how monstrous of a position. It's not like it's absolutely won, but it is very, very hard for black to play this position right here. Some of you guys might be wondering, was there any way for maybe Quang Liêm to play something different? Like, did he have to go into this? Was there like some kind of a defense? There actually was, but it is very, very hard to find this. If we go back to that move, knight plopping down here on g3, we did see bishop taking g3. There was a Zug opportunity that Quang Liêm had in the game, but they are playing Blitz. It's a little easier to find when you're playing a little bit longer time controls for calculation. In this position, you actually had pawn take c4. The one thing that I was telling you guys before that you really don't kind of want to help white out with, but as a bailout, you do have to counterattack in this position. You do not absolutely have to take back this bishop immediately because you are threatening this knight right here. But what you have to do is you have to kill down all of white's dynamic possibilities with these pawns before you capture the bishop on g3. So you would probably see something like this, and then pawn would be capturing here. So you would be, you know, like I said, being in a situation where this isn't as dynamic as it would have been if you were in that position, and you can kind of like, you know, suppress things like with F5 type deals. Anyways, going back to what we had in the game, we did see, my thing kind of changed on me. So we got rook e8 in the position. We do see knight coming down to f4. The bishop just drops itself back to f3. And basically what white is going to be able to do is at their leisure, because this pawn is not protectable by any other pawns, you are going to be able to probably pick up this pawn. But everything is pretty much safe in white's position. You got this knight protecting the front pawn for your double pawns. There really isn't a good way to get to this pawn. The bishop is safe. You are tying down this bishop to this rook. So white is definitely for choice here. We do see the move g6. We got pawn going to c6, knight coming up to e6. We see pawn taking f5, pawn taking f5. We do see the move f4. So now black has a problem because they are looking at passed pawns in two separate sectors of the board. And that is something going into an endgame that it is very, very hard to deal with. We do see knight going over to c7, trying to attack this rook. Like, bro, move your rook, just lose it, man. The rook goes over to f8 with check. King goes to g7. So you see that, I mean, even though the rook is very strongly placed, it doesn't have a whole lot of moves that it can really make on this back rank. The rook goes over to d8. We got knight down to e6, harassing it more. The rook goes over to e8, and then we do see king to f7. And we have a little bit of shifting back and forth. The rook slides over, the king attacks, and then we kind of have a repeating position. So it is in this position that Wesley so definitely has to find the move that was actually there 2 moves ago, and that is bishop to h5 with check. And this is the bailout move because it does check the king and protect the rook at the same time. So we do see king coming down to f6, and now white has a little bit of breathing room. We do see rook going over to g8. We see the move f4, and you see, like I said, this knight is literally in the most perfect spot to basically protect everything. You don't really have a whole lot of attacking possibilities with these pawns because they are corralled very heavily. We do see bishop going back to g4. The king goes up to f7. We do see bishop taking e6 with check, and this takes the knight off the board, and it does protect the rook at the same time. You don't want to take bishop takes because obviously that's going to hang your rook. So you do see king taking on e6. You got the move h5. Still those pawns that you have to worry about on different sides of the board. We do see rook coming down to b5. And yes, this does completely hang the bishop. You really didn't have a whole lot of great options anyway. But we do just see the push of the h6 pawn. Once the rook comes down to defend on h5, we do see rook taking c8. And you, like I said, you really didn't have anything better. You had to free yourself from the pin of that bishop to the rook. And you had to do it this way because if not, the pawn was just going to queen, and now you have a queen to worry about. So we do see rook taking h6. We got rook going to d8, cutting the king off from moving over to your pawns. We do see the rook to h7. We got the move b4, kind of like a waiting move. You're basically passing to move to black when black does not want to move at all. You do see the move a6. You got knight up to f3. Now you're starting to blockade the pawns. We do see king coming down to f5. It might look a little bit strange, but this particular situation right here, you are facing this fork right here. So you kind of have to do something about that. So that is why we do see king to f5. You got rook down to d7, and you are now forcing your pawn up and blocking this rook's ability, and you're wanting a trade. Obviously, black cannot go into that trade. We do see rook backing up to h8. We do see c7. We got king down to e4, but we don't care about that knight, homie. we got the move rook to d8. And it is in this position that Quang Liêm resigns the game. I don't really super, kind of need to explain why he resigns the game. You see that he is down an entire piece, and he cannot go into this trade because of the queening of the pawn. And you really can't move this rook anywhere that it's going to matter, because either the pawn is going to queen this way or it's going to queen up like that, and you just have a really, really done deal. So, like I said, it is in this position that Quang Liêm resigns the game. And Wesley So has gotten his revenge because he did lose that first game that they played in this tournament, if you saw my other video. So I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking mga kaibigan. Come on, Ben. And I'll see you guys next time.